And what we're going to sew are these little tiny chickens. They're pin cushions, and the things that we'll need to do that are pieces of fabric cut to 2x2 squares. We'll need 2 to sew a little chicken, and then we'll need a couple pieces of felt, and I filled mine with rice, but it can be filled with anything like a hull, like nut hulls, something that won't damage your pins. And then I attached little glass eyes for little glass beads for the eyes, and I will link the pattern and the written tutorial from Loganberry Handmade in the description. And I'm going to change our angle of the camera so you can see me do this. So we've got our fabric cut to 2x2 squares, and then we need a couple pieces of felt. We need felt for the comb, felt for the beak, and then the tail. So here's a couple pieces I have all ready to go. We're going to start with pinning on the right side the comb. I'll put the tail aside for the moment. So we'll pin the comb to the upper corner, and then the beak down just a little bit and on the right. And I roughly cut the shapes, but I can get the little shapes a little bit more detailed once they're sewn on. So they're in those upper corners, and then right sides together like that. And then I'm going to sew all the way across, attaching the comb, and then all the way across this way, attaching the beak. Okay? And I'll backstitch a little bit at each corner. I'm just redoing the pins so that they keep the fabric in place as well. And then we'll start. Make sure my threads are all lined up and out of the way. I'm using my antique Singer sewing machine, which is pretty fabulous. Let's make sure I'm all lined up. I want my stitches on fine so that they're nice and small to keep the rice in. I'm going to come down all the way to the corner, back stitch a little bit, and then I'm going to go down the other side. I'm going to take this pin out just so it's not in my way, because that one's already attached, and then leave this one in that's holding the beak in place. So I'm going to go down the other side, a little back stitching. My machine's caught the edge a little bit, so I'm going to just move it over just a little bit. There we go. And catch both fabrics and the beak. I'm going to take our pins out, and then cut our threads, and then when we turn it right side out, we can see the beginnings here because we've got our little comb, and then we've got our little beak already. I can take a chopstick and just push that corner out a little bit so it's got a little bit better chicken face. And then I'll show you one that I've already done. So I took a chopstick and just pushed that corner out a little bit. So we've got our comb, we've got our beak, and then we want to sew right where we feel like it's a good spot an eye using little glass beads. These are the glass beads I used, just what I had in my craft supply. And so then we want to just attach the little glass bead. I just put a knot in it and then drew the thread through it a few times, knotting off. and then we have little eyes attached. Once you have your eyes attached on both sides, then you want to turn it back so it's inside out again. We have one already. So we've got little eyes. This is the wrong side, but on the right side it's got little eyes attached. Then we want to sew the put it back right sides together and then wrong side out. And then we want to sew just this little edge here and a little edge here. And I'll show you on the one we started here. So this is our top. Hold on. Yeah, this is our top with the comb and then our beak on the side. And we're going to just sew here and we're going to sew here. So I'll show you what that looks like. You want to leave an opening for stuffing. Sew a corner there. And then we sew a corner, raise it up a little bit, and we'll sew a corner about there. So we just did that on the bottoms of our chicken. So we've got our comb here, our beak here, and we did an edge here and an edge here. And let's cut our threads, and I'll show you another one, the one where that's done already. So the eye, this is the wrong side of the eye, and then there's our little edge, and then there's our little edge. So once we've done that, then we turn it. So I'm going to show you. So once we've done that, so we've got our comb and we've got our beak, then we're going to take it, and it's in this shape to start with. Then we're going to fold it into this shape so that it's kind of squashed. So we've got our comb, we've got our beak, and then now we've got this edge. Because we already did those corners, remember, where we did the little edge here and the little edge here. So now we're going to just flatten that down like that. And then this is the butt side. Then we're going to put the tail in there. Now we want to be sure that it's sticking in far enough in the opening, because if we have the chicken tail too far out like this, then it will just disappear and you'll have no tail. I had that happen on one of my chickens. So we want to push it in far enough and then flatten this out. And then we sew right across here. So I'm just going to pin that tail in, and then we'll sew right across there. Again, I've got my stitches on really fine. I'm just going to sew right across that pin and back stitch. So the little tail's right in there. Okay. So let's trim our strings. And remember, we left that opening, so we still have this opening right here. And so we can turn carefully. So see, when we turn this out, we've got our little chicken face right there. And then there's, we just sewed this on, there's our little chicken tail. And I grab my chopstick help me turn it. So I'm just going to use my chopstick to gently push out the corners. And this, the unsewn bit, is the underside of the chicken. So I'll show you what I mean as we get our corners, finish getting our corners popped out. Just taking my time with it because it's a small project with little tiny corners. There's one corner, using my chopstick. Just gonna push out the other little corner. Okay. And then we have our chicken shape, right? We've got our comb and our beak, and we sewed on our little eyes. And then we just attached the little tiny tail. So we have our little chicken tail. So then this last, it looks like I missed one corner right here. Yeah. Okay. So we have this last bit that's open. And then this is the opening we use to fill it. So to fill it, what I like to do, I'm going to grab it, it's behind me. What I like to do to fill it is use a funnel to help me get the rice in there. So I've got just a kitchen funnel. So I gotta hold my little tiny chicken. So I found that these look better the fuller I can make them. So I have the dish underneath to catch any errant rice kernels, which of course there are a few. So then I have my little chicken who's pretty full of rice now. So then the only thing I have left to do to finish is to seam this closed by hand. And you can do that with an overhand stitch, or you can do it with an invisible mattress stitch. And I'll include some links in the description on how to do the different stitches. But let me grab my thread and I will start with you. But before I do, let me just show you what it looks like when it's done. I just hand sewed the seam together. There's our little chicken tail. And then here's the pincushion. And here is my hand sewing needle. So I'm just going to grab some thread. You can tie a knot in the end to start out with, and then hide that knot inside your chicken, which is what I like to do. The originator, Logan Berry Handmade, she overstitched her chicken, so her stitches are visible. So I just tied a knot in the end of that. And so I just got to get to that seam. So then I'm just going to hide my knot inside my chicken. I'm going to move the camera just a little bit. And then I grab some fabric on the opposite side. Give it a pull, and then I want to grab some fabric on the other side, just a tiny little bit, and pull, and see, then it's just going to close that right up. I'm going to grab on the opposite side again. And then going back and forth, grabbing just a little bit of fabric. A little bit. Now I sewed my beads on by hand too. I just tied a knot in my thread, doubled my thread, tied a knot in it, and then just went back and forth between the bead and the fabric, tying knots occasionally until it felt secure. Almost to the end here. I'm just gonna be sure to stuff the last little bit of the fabric in. Maybe I'll cut that thread that's sticking out from our original. And then just keep grabbing little bits of fabric on the opposite sides, going parallel. And the next thing you know, it's all the way seamed up. So just to be secure, so that I know those rice things aren't going to come out, I'm going to go back one more time. Doing the same thing, just grabbing a little bit of fabric on one side. And then grabbing a little bit of fabric on the other side. Yeah, just a little. Sorry if I go in and out of focus. This is my first time trying to videotape something on a really small scale. Plus, you know, sewing. So I think if the stitches show, it just makes it look homey. So I don't think that that's a problem. And then when I get all the way to the end, I'm gonna do another knot. So I'm gonna wait until I'm all the way down towards the tail, which is right now. So I get all the way down to the tail, and I just stick it in through the fabric. And then I'm just gonna go through my knot and through my knot. And there's one knot, and just because I like to be extra secure, I'm going to do it one more time. There's my loop. I'm going to go through my loop, and through my loop, and then pull it tight. And then snip our thread. Again, this is the bottom side, so the stitches are visible. And then turn it up. And there we have our little chicken. And then now we have, this is what I was doing the rice in. So now we have our little chicken who has little chicken friends. That I've already made. Thanks for joining us. I'll have some links in the description. Thanks to Loganberry Handmade for her wonderful pattern so that we have these great chickens.